Alrighty, well, hello everyone, and welcome to another interview on the Future Proof Your Law Firm Group. Today, I'm really excited to have Russel Morgan here today. Thank you so much for being here today, Russell. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I know it's a Monday, so I really appreciate you taking the time. So why don't we get started? Let's get right into it. Talk a little bit about your background, information on your firm, and kind of what you guys really focus on right now.
So I'm the founder and principal of Morgan Legal Group PC. We started in 2017. Our main practice areas are estate planning, asset protection, trust litigation, estate litigation, guardianship, real estate. That's pretty much our primary focus.
Gotcha.
So,
oh, what were you going to say?
no, that pretty much covers it.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah. And is there, a reason why you personally wanted to get into this space? Is it just kind of a passion you had, or did you see an opening in the market? What did that look like for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. The practice area requires a lot of financial know-how. There's tax consequences and tax law involvement, and it's an area where people always need help. Where it's an area that's been mystified for a long time, and I decided to take a different approach with open knowledge and open education, and being a resource and a tool for our clients rather than keeping this as a product that's only available to the 1%ers. This is something that everyone needs. This is something that everybody should be prioritizing and focusing on, and is something that is important for everyone, not just somebody who has a certain level of income or a certain amount of assets. It's something that we all need, from as young as 25 all the way up into our 80s.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome, and I'm glad you guys are doing that. So that actually sparks a question for me. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people come to you in terms of wealth management, estate planning, things like that?
It's out of my financial reach is one of the main ones that most people believe it's something that's unaffordable, something that people don't need if they're under a certain income level or a certain asset class, when in reality, most fighting takes place with regular people, who might leave a house and maybe some money in the bank. If they're lucky, maybe they'll leave, an investment in a 401k or a pension. And believe me when I tell you, people fight and bicker over small estates as much as they do over large estates. It's something that I tell all of my clients: family's family until there's money on the table, and at that point, sky's the limit.
Oh, sure. No, that totally makes sense. So, why don't we cover a little bit on, the law firm right now? So, I know COVID has affected all different types of firms all over the place in different ways. So I'd love to get your take on what kind of your law firm was like before, because I know you started it, like you said, in 2017, maybe some changes that you guys had to make, or maybe some challenges that you had to face and are still currently going through.
Well, the challenges were more client facing. So we were virtual and as paperless as possible in our practice area, at least before COVID. Half of our team works on site, half of our team is remote. We were working like that before the pandemic. Now it's, people are coming more into the office since, we're getting back into the full swing, but we were virtual before that. We had all of our agreements set up electronically, all of our payments set up electronically. We had all of our resources available online. The biggest hurdle is, people were reluctant to commit and build faith and rapport in somebody who they're essentially trusting with all of their money, for the most part, without meeting them face to face. That was pretty much the biggest hurdle. It was getting people to get comfortable into this space where you and I are communicating now, and having them understand that there's really no difference. In all reality, it doesn't matter if I'm sitting in the room, in the same room with you, or if we're conversing by video chat. At the end of the day, it's the work product. If I'm delivering you the results that you need me to deliver, at the end of the day, that's what we need. That was the biggest hurdle. I know a lot of firms had issues adjusting to virtual platforms, electronic signature, virtual notary. These are things that, for the most part, we had implemented way ahead of the curve. And in that case, we were luckier than most. It was really the client-facing issues and getting people to understand that the work product speaks for itself. And as much as I love the face-to-face interaction, we can be a lot more productive and help a lot more people remotely.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I think that's kind of a commonality that I've seen a lot of the law firms, the lawyers I've been interviewing recently, is that with technology comes an increase in efficiency for sure. You can get more
Sure.
done with less time, and I think that's, sometimes it might be scary to jump into that, but in the long run, I think it's very beneficial. I would love to know though, maybe for some people who are struggling with clients not being face to face, what are some tips you would give them, or how did you guys overcome that hurdle that you just talked about?
Your follow-up is your business. Competition is fierce. We're in New York City. My firm happens to cover the entire state, so we have varying markets. But let's talk about New York City for a second. The competition is fierce, regardless of what practice area you're in. If you're not serious about following up and maintaining communication with your clients, whether that's through an email or through a text message or through a drip campaign, if you're not acting as a resource, if they can't trust you with simple questions, and they can't come back to you with more questions, they're simply not going to be converting. So it's really about a front-facing, resource-based platform. So rather than being a salesman, which is what most people think this is, the clients need to be comfortable that they can come to you with emotion-based questions, that they can trust you with making sure that they're comfortable before you take their money. And that takes time. So follow-up is probably the most important part of closing your first couple of clients or maintaining your client base.
Oh, definitely. No, I think the follow up is very, very important for sure. Whether you're in a highly competitive market or not, I think it's very important to stay top of mind and make sure that these individuals are thinking of you, because people have busy lives. They might, you might talk to them on the phone and they're, oh, yeah, 100% sold, but something might come up. And if they forget about you, they might not be doing it on purpose or being mean or anything like that. They don't want to become a client. They just might forget, so I think that's very important, and I'm glad you touched on that. When it comes to being in such a competitive market, I know you guys have been around for a couple years, but still being, relatively new a little bit. How have you guys been able to really break through this kind of competitive space, especially in this digital age? I saw that it seems like you guys have a decent following, a decent web presence. I mean, are you doing things, with when it comes to search engine optimization or online advertising, or do you have another kind of marketing plan to acquire those clients?
I think we run the gamut when it comes to online advertising, period. We do a lot of organic growth. We do some publications, a lot of press releases, some forward-facing advertising, of course, some Google and social media marketing. But it's really about consistency and persistence. People build rapport when they know you're here to stay. They don't put faith in a fly-by-night. And unfortunately, people don't understand that just like any other business, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. But the longer that people see that you're here to stay, regardless of the storm that we're weathering, the more faith and rapport that you're building in your future client base. And it just takes consistency and persistence. That's the best way that I can put it.
Oh, definitely. No, definitely. And, something I want to ask, because I'm sure a lot of people, when they hear about this, all this, when it comes to acquiring clients, a big thing, especially in such a competitive market like New York City, is the cost. Now, I'm not sure how involved you guys are in it. And obviously, we don't need to get into the financials of things, but some people think, oh, it's too expensive to advertise. It's too expensive to do X, Y, Z. Have you guys found that it is really expensive, or have you found it's worth it? What is your experience with that?
I guess it's going to depend on the market and your level of knowledge of advertising, period. If some of it is pure trial and error, and some platforms will have a very high cost basis. Other types of advertising, it's really skill based, and you have to know your market, and you have to know your demographic, and you have to know your type of clientele. And if you can hone in, you can keep your cost basis down. If you don't know how to hone in, and you don't know how to do your demographical and geographical research and keyword based marketing, and all that other fun stuff that goes into it, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to spend a lot of money and not make much. So
Yeah.
it's a combination of a couple of different um, styles of advertising.
Definitely. No, I would fully agree with that. And I think a lot of people, either they're too scared to get it started with it, or they maybe might start guns blazing and they spend all this money without doing too much advertising. They think, oh, I just need to get my name out there. If I get my name out there, then people are going to call me. But like you said, a lot of times you could be reaching a lot of people with your name, but they might not be the right type of, they might not be like your target audience, or it might be a different stage of the marketing funnel. There's a lot of things that go into it, like you said. So before wasting your money, people need to make sure they do their proper research for sure, or at least have somebody that knows what they're doing take care of it for them. So I think that's very important for sure.
That's true. I agree.
And, I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I got two final questions for you, Russell. This second to last one. When it comes to technology, what are some of the most important pieces of technology that you use in your law firm and would recommend for other people to use as well?
Well, the most important piece right now, considering that everybody's on the go, everybody's on a smartphone, is electronic signature. That's something that is here to stay. Now, it might be tweaked, they might put in some extra precautions, but it's absolutely a must, regardless of what you're doing, what area of law you're practicing, and what type of business you're conducting. Forget about law; it runs the gamut in general. Number two is accessibility. People want to make sure that regardless of where they are and what time it is, they can get a hold of you. So for my practice, at least, and in my experience, whether that's live chat or 24-hour service, you need to be available. Now, it doesn't have to be personally you. There are a ton of virtual assistants and after-hour services and live chat features that you can pay for a relatively modest fee, but accessibility is super important. So, people want to make sure that it's easy and available at the click of a button.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And the ease of use is for sure very important, because that could make or break something. People don't want people are very instant gratification based. They want that kind of instant gratification. Like you said, if you have a simple, maybe automated chat that you could set up and answer a couple of people's questions, that could make or break it, between them going to you or going to somebody else, because
That's right.
you didn't have it. So no, that's very important. And if for people who don't have it, highly recommend following Russell's advice and check that out. So my final question for you today, Russell, and thank you so much for all the value you've been sharing so far,
Of course.
is what is one final thing you would share to a individual lawyer, maybe looking to start their own firm, or somebody who has a firm but is kind of struggling right now? What's one last final piece of advice that you would give for them?
That networking, if you don't have capital, is king. selling yourself is more important than the sale itself. So not everybody, and I didn't have the budget that, we have now to spend on marketing. And when we didn't, I marketed myself. And the only thing I can tell you is if whether you don't know how, or whether you're afraid to spend money on advertising, market, collaborate, speak to your own people, use your Rolodex and your own contacts before you start spending money. You'll be surprised how much value add you find in your own Rolodex, and how many people that you might think may have no connections or no contacts or no clientele, but until you put yourself out there and let them know what you bring to the table, there's absolutely no reason that you have to turn that away. So if you're afraid to advertise, or if you haven't had the success that you wanted to, simply focus on networking and just get yourself out there.
Definitely.
And once you have some success there, you really have to, as much as I can say that I'm a lawyer by trade, you have to know your advertising before you start throwing money at it. So if that's your biggest fear, networking is your key.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've said this multiple times, but I say it because it's true. And I'm not going to say that I'm the one who came up with it, but I know I've heard it all the time, is that, your network is your net worth, for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've probably heard that for sure. And, it's very true, because, when you maybe have more time than money, you can spend that time doing things that will generate you money. And then eventually, when you have
Absolutely.
the money, you can do that to save you time. So I
That's
think
true.
that's very important for people who are, who are struggling, for sure. And, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Of
So,
course.
Russell, if anybody wants to learn more about you or about your law firm, maybe what you guys cover, where would be the best place for them to go ahead and find you at?
morganlegalny.com. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Morgan Legal NY, or at morganlegalny.com.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it, Russell. Thank you again for being here today.
Thank you for having
And
me.
thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you all in the next one. Have a great day.